Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're tuning into the Lead to Excel podcast, the hub where science meets leadership and transformation begins. I'm your host, Maureen Chiana, founder of the Mindsight Academy, a trailblazer in the world of neuro leadership. I'm an executive neuro coach, leadership transformer, and a neuroscience enthusiast dedicated to empowering leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers like you. Every week, we delve into the heart of neuroscience to discover how you can unleash your potential, master your brain, manage emotions, yours and others, alter behaviors, and exceed expectations. We are here to help you, not just to survive, but thrive and flourish in the fast-paced world around us. We're about to kick off another high-impact episode today, diving into a topic that is powerful, intriguing, and has the potential to shift your leadership journey. So, my friends, it's time to put on your thinking caps, grab your favorite beverage, and get comfortable. It's time to elevate your leadership to excel and soar higher. Let's dive right in. I am absolutely excited to be back again with another episode of Lead to Excel with a fantastic, amazing lady with me today. I have got today with me Sarita Stefani. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Awesome. Wonderful. Yes.
Oh, Sarita, it's so good to have you with us today on Lead to Excel podcast. So, where are you based? Where are you in the world?
Hi, thank you for having me. I am based in London. So I'm a Londoner, yes. Even though my background, I'm from Venice, Italy.
Awesome. Oh, it's so good to have you. I do love Venice.
Thanks.
I do love Venice so much.
It is. It's the most beautiful place in the world.
It is. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. So, Sarita, what do you do?
So I am the CEO and co-founder, along with my business partner, Yasmin. We founded this company called Amelis. It's an egg freezing platform that helps women throughout the egg fertility preservation journey. So from the start to the beginning, we help women find the clinics, matchmaking with doctors, get onboarding, and then we help them understand the result, their test, and when we're ready, collect the eggs and use them. And this is very important, obviously, for fertility preservation, if you're not ready to have a baby yet for any reason, and so on.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. In fact, yes. That was why when I saw what you did, because I think we are members of the Healthcare Business Women's Association. That was
yes.
It. Yes. So when I saw what you did, I went, oh, this is interesting. I would love to have a chat with you. And once we really had a chat, I went, you're coming onto the podcast. We've got to have you on. So it's really great to have you here today.
Thank you. So Amelis was born from my personal journey for fertility preservation. So we have this mission for us, to make it more accessible, more transparent, more cost efficient. So we have, we know that egg freezing and fertility preservation treatment is a popular word now. So we want just to be the unbiased friends that help women to understand the process before taking any decision. So, and this is like a personal journey through fertility.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So what's your background? What did you study and where did you grow up?
Yeah. So I actually have a very mixed background. As a Bachelor Degree, I studied history of art because I just liked it. Yeah. So I studied history of art. I loved it. And, and then I soon realized, this is not going to take me so forward. So I decided to change and I did a master in finance in London. So completely from here to here, big change. And then I started working in finance. I used to work in the biggest brokerage firm in the world. Absolutely hated my life every day. Wow. Horrible. Waking up 5 a.m., male-dominated environment. I really didn't enjoy at all finance. So I quit. And I changed to more like tech. So then I worked for a bit in Thomson Reuters in the tech platforms. Yeah, like it a bit more, but still not. And then I finally landed in the healthcare tech space. So I worked for DRG and then Clarivate and then IQVIA and then Viva System. So then, like finally I got exposed to the love of my life, which is healthcare. And then I landed into Amelis, which like it's a mix between obviously healthcare and helping patients for the journey from a personal reasons and so on. So I have a very varied background, so I'm like the existing example that you can change your career anytime. Like from art to healthcare, if you really have passion for what you do, you can change anytime. Finance, no that. Finance. Yeah.
So whatever. Sorry, now I was just gonna say I love the fact that you figured out what you did not want to do and you did it. But let's drill a bit into that. So changing from history of arts, you said, to finance, and then from finance you went into tech. How was that change? What level did you get up to in finance before you made the change?
Yeah. So I actually, studying, I studied international finance at Westminster University. So consider that I did my bachelor in Italy, in Italian. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to London, and then I did international finance in English as a master. So already that jump, studying a completely new language, not completely, I spoke English already, a little bit, but studying, doing a master in English in finance, which was a completely new topic. I didn't know even what was a bond, so I had to study doubled, but eventually I succeeded pretty well. I took like quite good degrees because I just wanted to get good marks, good degrees. I wanted this degree to change my career, so it was tough. Nothing comes easy. Like I had to study a lot, I had to work double. But then eventually it paid off because I started my career in finance. And I worked, so for the first year, I was relatively junior in finance. But then, I grew up quite quickly. Because also, in this brokerage firm, I was one of the very few women working in there. So there was a space to grow for me. And then eventually I was making money. So, also like when you perform well, you get a lot of, so when I left, I would say I was like in a mid-senior level in finance.
How long were you in finance for? How many years were you in finance? Oh, 3 years. Okay. And then you moved into tech.
Yeah. And then I moved into tech at Reuters. I was working in the electronic platforms. And then I stayed just 1 year. It was Reuters is a huge corporation. So, I enjoyed, but then I wanted something a little bit smaller with less, Reuters is huge. So I wanted something a bit different, and I needed to change environment, so it was good to change from finance to tech, but I was still not happy. Mm-hmm. So when I landed into healthcare, I wanted to study medicine eventually, but my parents, typical Italian, they were, no, you can't, you have to get married, have kids, baby, you can't study 10 years. It's not possible. So I didn't study medicine, but I always been fascinated by science and healthcare and doctors and so on. So eventually I landed.
Did you actually actively go to look for work in healthcare, or was it something that just happened?
No, I did. Then I wanted to give it a try, but then it happened. So, I was like, again, I changed my career so many times because I was not happy that I was expecting it to happen. Mm-hmm. But obviously, you have to prove a lot, mm-hmm. Changing, you have to prove that, yes, I can learn. And then when I started in healthcare, my growth was exponential because I enjoyed so much that I started from a junior level again. And then, because I was performing very well, I loved it. In 2 years, I was senior in the company. So I was doing So, if you enjoy what you're doing, you can grow very quickly.
So how did you manage, that change? Because you mentioned, you've got to prove yourself a lot, and you've done quite a lot of changes. So how have you been able to navigate through those changes? Because a lot of times people don't want to change because of fear of failing, or, you've got to do so much to really climb up. How have you managed to really handle those changes? And also, what gives you the ability to be able to do that? Is it something in your background? Is it how you grew up? But because you coming to England to study in a new a language that was almost like a second language, and then changing quite often. Where did that come from?
So I did fail a lot of times. So, like I took failure as a part of the process in getting where I wanted to be. I also have
Can you give us an example of how you failed and how you actually came back up? Because that is something that I think people would find really helpful.
So, at the beginning, when I started a new job, I didn't know exactly what to do, like how was the process. And, like the company that I joined, it was not too big. So I had eventually to do things by myself. And I was almost, I was getting stuck into processes. I was not happy with how things were going at a certain point and so on. And then, I was almost giving up. And, that was almost I felt that, okay, I can't deal with this. And then I took a step back and I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is what I enjoy very much. Just do your own thing. If you don't think this is right, just do your own thing and just show the people that show to your boss that doing things in this way performs better. Give it a try. So sometimes it worked, sometimes, I was doing things differently from communications updates to clients and so on. And it was receiving very good feedback, better than what it was done before. Sometimes it was not, and we had to let it go. But, at that time, I had to, it's very hard to change the status quo of a company that do things in that way. So you have to take a leap of faith and just do things in what you think it will be the best way, and show the progress that you make, and show that this, the results that you get doing things differently. So, sometimes I did fail. Sometimes I just, it was better. And then all the company was applying what I was implementing, So it was, it's very hard because you have to do it. It's easier, to follow processes than start something new. But I have to say that what kept me going and what made me grow more is always trying to do things in my own way, and do implement changes that were proof records that it was working. So that was my main track record.
So did you find that there are times that you try to do things your own way that backfired? So you try to do it your own way and either things didn't work out well. How was that taken, and how did you handle that?
100%. I had huge fights sometimes with my boss. Huge fights, not fights, but we were sitting at the table. I'm like, Sarita, what are you doing? It's like this is not. But then also people are people, right? If you show them that there's a mental process behind what you're trying to do. I mean, my manager at the time was very flexible. So I'm obviously we're hey, what are you doing? But then when he saw it was working, he let me do it. He was let me doing my things. And that's why I progressed in the company, I also have to say that I was always asking to get my next role. So after 1 year, I was okay, I've achieved this and this and this. You need to give me a promotion. I want a promotion. I want a promotion. I want a promotion. I want a promotion, because I also realized if you don't ask, you don't get. And something, that is very important that I also realized is that you have to show what are your progresses, because otherwise people take it for granted and it seems like you're doing nothing. So I learned this also very quickly. At the beginning, I was getting frustrated. I'm like, why don't people don't see what I'm doing? Like it's working fantastically.
How
Clients
did
are
you
happy.
learn it? How did you learn that though? And how were you able to have the confidence to do it? Because a lot of times I find that a lot of women, they see it, but they don't, they don't have the confidence to then do something about it. Some women, not, obviously not all,
Agreed.
but yeah. So how did you do that?
So I established at the team meetings that we were having every Thursday morning for my team, the one that I was on, that was like the client facing team. I was like, okay, I want half an hour of the time for this meeting for all the team to say what they have achieved and what they have done, like for this week. And every week somebody needed to speak, like I'm sure like the progresses, how they were doing things and so on. And that worked very well because then, like if something was working well, other people were willing to take on that progress and try it with their own clients. So, you have to, I learned that this is very important because sometimes, we can just do our jobs and that's it. But if you do not speak up, people don't see the progress. They're doing their own job, so it's not even that people do it on purpose, or it's just they're doing their own job. So they're worried to deliver their stuff. And if you don't share, you don't get. So I learned that because at the beginning I was getting frustrated, I'm like, I'm doing all of this work. Client is happy. Why nobody tells me anything about it? But then I realized, people don't know what I'm doing. So I need to share. So I created a format that every week we were sharing, and then also proposed the same in the team meeting, because sometimes you have a team in the States, people all over the world. We were sharing, we had sharing session. So we could also learn from each other what worked and what was not working.
That's fantastic. That's really amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
When you've now come into healthcare, and so how did you then when did you set up the Amelis and why? So, how did that come about?
Yeah. So last year I quit my job in my last corporate, and I had already frozen my egg the previous year. So all my family, they are all gynecologists. So I had a wide understanding of the fertility space and so on. And then because, I work in the healthcare sector for many years, I said, you know what, I went through the process. I saw the unmet needs. I'm a patient myself. There's a lot of space to improve this process with tech, with, improving it for patients. And I'm going to leverage also my family contacts, to get into the UK market, to speak with the UK doctor and get into the UK market. So Amelis was born from obviously my family helped me to speak with the doctors here in the UK. And also from my journey, I had tracked down all the journey, all the pain points, what I spend money on, all the useless things I've done throughout the process, the stress I went through. So all of this, I summed 1 + 1, and I'm like, okay, I have to do something to help women out there to go through this journey.
So really,
and that's why Amelis was created.
So really, Amelis was created from your own experience, so what you went through that you now
100%.
wanted. Okay, interesting. So tell us a bit about your own experience because you said a year before you set up Amelis, you actually froze your own eggs. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So why?
So I am married, and I was married also at the time. And I remember one day we sat down with my husband and we realized, okay, we don't want to have kids anytime soon. I'm not getting any younger. We all know that fertility declines with age for women. When you are around 30 years old, it starts the decline. After 35, the decline is it's deeper, unfortunately. So, there's more complication, miscarriages, chromosome abnormalities, and so on. So I was like, okay, I'm 32. It's time for me to understand, even before we had this conversation and before I had my first AMH test, I didn't even know if I was fertile, I didn't know if my husband was fertile. So, we don't know this stuff at school, we don't learn these things at school, you live in the society that you think it's a Hollywood movie. Oh yeah, you know what? Let's have a baby. And tomorrow they deliver a baby and they all have makeup on, like it's so easy. Like I'm delivering my child, like it's like, and I'm beautiful after 5 minutes, like we live in this world that, like childbirth, it's easy. Getting pregnant, it's easy, but it's actually not. So I decided to basically like just go through the process. So, we could have options in the future to have a child in the case I was deciding, like to wait after 35 years old or even older. You never know, maybe we have our first child naturally. And then our second child, because I'm older or because my husband is older, we're going to need some help. So I did freeze my egg for this reason, because I wanted to have option to use them in the future in the case, like we had more troubles to get pregnant. Yeah. I'm pregnant now, naturally.
Yeah, so, congratulations. Congratulations. That's Thanks. Amazing. But before you go on, I just want to ask, you were married, you were not going to have kids, or you felt you were not going to have kids soon. What gave you the idea of egg freezing, though? Because that's not the first thing that will occur to many people.
No, it's not. So I have to say that my family was very keen for me. Like even when I was 28 and I met my husband, my father-in-law saw that I was like very focusing on my career, and we were traveling around the world, and like we wanted just to have our own life before like having a child. And he was like, "You should freeze your eggs." And I'm like, I'm 28 years old.
Your father-in-law.
My father-in-law.
Wow, that is a cool father-in-law. Is he a gynecologist?
Yes, he's a gynecologist.
Okay. That makes sense. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So he was like, "You should freeze your eggs," and I'm like, "So you have more time, like you do whatever you want. You travel now, you work, do your own things." And I'm like, I'm 28 years old. What, I'm gonna freeze my eggs for 28 years? I'm like, no, this is the time. The earliest, the better, the less painful, the less injections, like better quality of eggs and all of that. I'm like, no. And then after 3 years, I decided to basically to do it, because, I was like, let's freeze your eggs. Come on, like, let's see. And then I decided to do it. But also, like, it does take a bit of time to do your research and to understand the process. And it's painful, not painful. You have a lot of questions. And when you Google this stuff, like you just don't understand anything. And that's why also that's why we created Amelis, to provide information around it. Because also, like, egg freezing is not for everybody, right? Yeah. Maybe you have a super high, you have a lot of eggs, you're very in reserve. You do not need to do it. Or, like it's just, you have other conditions, like we have to consider that people have other conditions, right? And then you have to, like, we talk a lot about endometriosis nowadays. If you have endometriosis, there's another protocol that you should go through it if you want to freeze your eggs, or, other conditions, like, so it's not really for everybody. And you should understand this before thinking about egg freezing, like, I think like every woman that has this in her mind, before thinking about egg freezing, you should know, like, where are you in your fertility journey, right? Because, maybe from the fertility test that you do, which is the AMH, it comes up that you have another condition. Like, it comes up, like that you have polycystic ovaries. I don't know, like from just a blood test.
Yeah, can I just take you back a bit in terms of the egg freezing, so that we can kind of go through? I hope people would understand the process as we go through. So when you then decided that you're going to look into it, what's now involved? What's the first thing to then do in terms of, okay, I want to freeze my egg, and what's the process for egg freezing? Because I want us to go through this, then I'm going to come back to Amelis. So for somebody that is thinking about it, what is the process? What do they do first, and what's the time frame? How does it work?
Yeah, so you have to decide which clinics you want to go to. Okay, and that's already huge decision to take. That's also why we created Amelis. We match make women for their needs with doctors that meet their needs. So consider, for example, in London, let's take London because I'm based here. Clinics are good. All the clinics are good. There's so much regulation. So you heard from a friend of one clinic, another one, whatever. So let's say you have gone through all the research, you have decided which clinics you go to, which by the way is not easy, because why would you pick one clinic rather than another one? You know, it's a question that we receive on daily basis from women. Their answer is that clinics operate in a bit different ways. It depends if you want a boutique clinic, if you want a more clinical place, if you want a bigger hospital. So like there's choices for all. But let's assume you went through this process, you on board with the clinic, you go to the clinic, then they do this test, which is called AMH. It's a blood test that tells you your ovarian reserve, right? It's not like doesn't tell all fertility things, but it tells you basically like at which level is your ovarian reserve. It also can tell you if you have polycystic ovaries and other conditions depending on the result of the test. So it's a very important test to do also for understanding other conditions. And it's a test that costs 100 pounds, between 100 to 150 pounds. So it's accessible, this test, and everybody should do it just to know, just to know. So you do the test, then you do a vaginal scan still in the clinic the same day usually. And then you discuss the result with the doctor. They tell you have a good ovarian reserve, low ovarian reserve, or high ovarian reserve. If you have a good or low ovarian reserve, they usually tell you, look, you should consider freezing your eggs. Let's assume you have a good ovarian reserve, you are 34 years old, you decide to go for the treatment. What's happening is that then you go home, they send you, like you do all the paperwork with the clinic, they send you the medications at home. These are self-injection. The needle is very tiny. It's like same as the diabetic pens. Mm-hmm. So it's like very tiny needle. You basically have to self-inject yourself in the lower abdomen. You pinch your skin in the lower abdomen. The treatment starts on the first day of your period. So when you have your period, you start to self-injecting yourself. That's why you self-inject, so you don't have to go back and forth to the clinic. Mm-hmm. So when the period starts, you pinch your skin first day. For 5 to 6 days, you have one injection. 6 days, you have to top up with another injection. So for other 4 or 5 days, you have another injection. And then throughout the process, if everything goes well, you do not have symptoms, you usually do not go to the clinic, because also they do your blood work before. They test if you have HIV or all of these things before you start the treatment.
All that is done at the beginning, isn't it? The pre-test, okay, yeah.
You have also the pre-test, and that's for a reason, because if you have HIV, for example, they can't store your eggs in the same place that they store the other eggs. Mm-hmm. So it's more for safety of other patients and so on. So that's why they do all of this tests. And then let's say throughout the injection process, you do not have specific condition. The only side effect that you could have is ovarian hyperstimulation. So you stimulate too much your ovaries, so you get bloated and so on. Usually the side effect you could have during this stimulation is that you're a bit bloated, you're a bit tired, you're a bit hormonal. So, like these one are symptoms you could go through. But if you get ovarian hyperstimulation, you will feel it, and you have to go to the clinic to do a checkup. They have to take care of the patient. But that's very rare nowadays because they give a bit less medications than they're not too aggressive nowadays. So it's very rare.
So and then what does Amelis do in terms of the fertility? I want to see where Amelis comes in terms of supporting women. So what does Amelis actually do now?
Yes. So wait, let me finish it. And then when you finish to self-inject yourself, you go to the clinic to retrieve the eggs. So this is like a 5-minute surgery. They put you to sleep, or they do local anesthesia. When you wake up or when you finish the treatment, they tell you how many eggs they have collected that are suitable to freeze. And then they put them in this nitrogen tank, and you can freeze them for 55 years. So that's the process. It's like per se, the egg retrieval is a 5-minute procedure. All the rest, you do it by yourself with self-injections. And it's not that painful or anything particular. It's a bit uncomfortable. Yes, it's uncomfortable. And it's a 2 to 3 weeks process, let's say. So what we do all the initial part of the discovery. So if you go to Amelis, we have all the part that you understand the treatment. So like you walk into the treatment with, like a lot of knowledge around it. And then we match make you with doctors. So you tell us the parameter. Basically, we have a filter search that tells you the parameters that you want. Like, I want a clinic near home. I want a Spanish-speaking doctors. I want a female doctor, a male doctor. I want a clinical place. I want a more boutique clinic. For me, I need a budget clinic, like a cheaper clinic. So we do all of that. Basically, we think for the patient, and then we propose to the patient 2 options. And what happens is that you can have free calls with our partner clinics. So basically, you can speak with the clinics for free, which I didn't have this. So I pay £250 every time I walk in a clinic. So I spend thousands in just going and for picking the clinic. With us, with Amelis, it's free. So you walk into, you speak with the doctor, and then when you're happy, we onboard you to the clinic. So we basically help the clinic to digitalize the journey. So patients can follow their own journey from our app, which is being built now. And also, like, another thing that is important is that with Amelis, if you do tests somewhere, you will be able as a patient to upload the test, so then you don't have to do it again. Because the initial package is around 500 to 600 pounds. So, if you don't have that results, you have to pay those money again. So, we basically get the patients to own their journey within the fertility clinic and implement their communication with the fertility clinic as well.
Right. Okay.
That's what we do.
That's really interesting. So Amelis comes in, is it after the initial testing, the pre-test that they do, or do they, if somebody is just thinking about it, do they then come to you? So at what point do they come to you, to Amelis?
At the very, very beginning. When you think about egg freezing and you Google egg freezing, we come up.
Right. Okay. So that's the stage at which they can come to you, and then you can then guide them through the whole process. And
exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's really helpful. So literally what you then do is give them the information for them to then choose the clinic that they would then go through to have the full fertility treatment. Is that right?
Yes. And they can have free consultations with the doctors from the clinics, our partner clinics, through us. So,
and then make their mind up which one they want to use. Is that right? Is that it?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. That's really helpful. So in terms of fertility treatment, is it just women that you work with, or is it also men?
So interesting enough, like at this early stage, we just speak with women. However, we did have 2 patients that went through the sperm freezing as well. So, there's opportunity for Amelis to expand also to the men space for sperm freezing, or, services for men. At present, we just work with women and egg freezing or fertility investigation testing, or, everything that is related to women, hormones and gynecologist visit and so on. So we are more on the women's side. I'm not going to say that in the future we don't cover the men, because it already happened. So we are happy to do that.
Yeah. So what have you found from your work, from your experience, and from what you're doing at Amelis? What have you found out in terms of egg freezing that you can share with us to really help women, encourage women to look into it, and also kind of maybe remove the myths or stigmas that are attached to it?
Yes. So I think that nowadays I personally, and I say that there's a lot about egg freezing. There's very positive, very negative, and so on. The reality of the fact is that any treatment, we're going to have a lot of positive and negative feedback on it. The reality of the thing is that we want to have women take their own decision, so you read negative, you read positive, Do you want to go through it? It's your decision. Like you shouldn't feel pushed by society or the clinics or doctor. So, you should understand it so well, and you should be, like so self-conscious of like where you are in your fertility journey, then you decide to go for it, or maybe not, which is absolutely fine. But that's what we want to, like, our message is like, egg freezes is not for everybody, and it doesn't guarantee you to have a child. So like you should work in this treatment knowing about this. It gives you options. Yes, it gives you option, because we've seen women that, for example, they have the first child naturally, and then because they're older, they're like probably 38, 39, they have complications in having the second one naturally. And then because they froze their eggs 10 years before, they just use the frozen eggs, which is a 5 minutes procedure to use your eggs, rather than spending thousands and thousands on IVF treatments, So, like you also have to consider that if you freeze your eggs and you need to use them, it's a 5 minutes procedure. Basically, it's like they inject the embryo back in the uterus. It's literally a 5 minutes procedure. And your eggs are the same quality when you freeze them. So your eggs are not 39 years old. If you freeze them at 30, they are 30 years old, which is, you understand, like it's like much better.
Yeah.
So, like there's a lot of factor to consider. It might be, for example, also like some women that freeze their eggs, they have negative outcomes. So you should also be prepared that maybe you get 2 eggs out of the treatment. It's also possible. Maybe you don't get any eggs. Maybe you cannot finish the treatment because something happens, and, like that's where also like you should be prepared. So, like it's obviously like it's science, and the medical advancement doesn't, like it's all in process, but we should be saying the truth about it. It's not a guarantee to have a child. We shouldn't say anything like that. It's an option for the future. So, like that's what it is, and we should be transparent about it. The reality of the fact is that also, it's very true that, like on average in the world, we are delaying motherhood. Women are getting older, and it doesn't help the fact that, like unfortunately for us, fertility declines arrives at an early age, when like you're still like in your, because like 35 years old. I mean, I'm young, but still, like your fertility doesn't stay exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So how long can eggs be kept for, frozen eggs? How long can they be stored for?
So in this country, in the UK, 55 years. So 55 years, but every 10 you have to give the consent to keep it or not.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then you should, women should, that freeze their eggs, they should keep the clinics updated with their home address and stuff, because also now every year they have to, like, you basically get charged for the storage, right? So like if you don't update your details, like they have clinics have boundaries to keep the eggs. But eventually, if you don't reply for like 1 year, probably they will discard them if it's not, if you don't reply or don't pay for the storage. So, like there's also like all of this part of the storage that it's very interesting topic.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I think we've kind of come to the end of the podcast.
Yes.
But really fantastic insight into egg freezing and what you do at Amelis. So if you just tell us a bit, I'm going to put the descriptions and information about Amelis in our description, or information about Amelis in our description. But can you just quickly tell people quickly where they can find you? Maybe it's a website and all that. Yeah.
Yes. So we have our website, which is www.amelis.co.uk. We have also some clinic in Spain now. They're not live in the platform yet, but you can reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly, sarita@amelis.co.uk, or bookings@amelis.co.uk. And then you can follow us on media. We are on Instagram at Amelis Fertility. Do check us out, because what happens there is that we interview a lot of doctors. We have a lot of events. We collaborate a lot with clinics. So, like we are aiming to spread the education around egg freezing and women's fertility. So we post a lot of interesting content in there, tips, what's the process video on injections and all of that stuff that could help through the process.
Yeah, thank you so much. You guys are doing such an amazing job. And I truly admire how you live your life. I really admire it, because it's a case of, it's almost like you're fearless. You go for things. You want something, you do it. You detect a problem, an issue based on your experience. And what do? You set up a business. You decide to help. And I think that's so commendable. So well done in what you're doing. And please reach out to Sarita if you need any information, or just even want to have a chat. If for yourself, or even for someone that you know. And Sarita, thank you so much. And just finally, would you give our listeners any word of advice for someone that is either thinking about egg freezing or unsure? Any word of advice you can give them?
Yes. So I would say go through your fertility investigation first before taking any decision. And also what I have to say, if egg freezing is whispering into your mind, do not procrastinate it too much. So these are my pieces of advice. And it's uncomfortable, but nobody should be scared of it. It's just we don't have enough information about it, but it's a quite easy process. So these are my free takes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really helpful and very fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarita, for joining us on Lead to Excel podcast. And thank you for opening yourself up for us and sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We've gotten to the end of another enlightening episode of Lead to Excel podcast. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today, diving deep into the intriguing world of neuroscience and leadership. Remember, the journey to personal and professional excellence is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goals. If you found value in our conversation today and it sparked insights or even questions, I invite you to share your thoughts with us. Join our community on the Mindsight Academy. It's called Limitless Leaders Community, where we continue the conversation and share valuable resources to help you lead and excel. Please also consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but it also helps others find our show. Sharing is caring after all. Lastly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We have a treasure trove of insights, inspiration, and expert advice coming your way in every episode. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single one. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, this is Maureen Chiana, reminding you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep leading to excel. Stay safe, stay motivated, and let's live a life of no limitations. Because after all, you are limitless.